people and ideas together in the most marvelous way. Andrew? He's also very well dressed.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thank you for inviting me. Well, working for NPR really teaches me how to cut my stuff down the last minute. So the piece is called Afghanistan Can't Wash Away Vietnam. Trying to Google news from my homeland, Vietnam, over the last few weeks has not been easy. The headlines that show were anything but Vietnam. Leading up to President Obama's speech on why we need to send 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan, Vietnam has been once again reduced to America's bogeyman. Here are a few headlines from the major news organizations. Afghanistan haunted by ghosts of Vietnam. Will Obama's war become his Vietnam? Vietnamists haunt Afghanistan. Oftentimes, indeed, when we mention the word Vietnam in the US, we don't mean Vietnam as a country. Vietnam is unfortunately not like Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore to America's collective imagination. Its relationship to us is special. It is a vault filled with tragic metaphors for every pundit to use. After the Vietnam War, Americans were caught in the past, haunted by unanswerable questions, confronted with an unhappy ending. So much so that my uncle, who fought in the Vietnam War as a pilot for the South Vietnamese Army, once observed that when Americans talk about Vietnam, they really are talking about America. Americans don't take defeat and bad memories very well. They try to escape them, he said. They make a bad habit of blaming small countries for things that happen to the United States. AIDS from Haiti, flu from Hong Kong, drugs from Colombia, hurricanes from the Caribbean. I once met a Vietnamese man who made money acting in Hollywood. He had survived the war and the perilous journey on the South China Sea to come to America. Now he plays Viet Cong, South Vietnamese soldier, peasant. He is a great actor, he bragged. No one recognizes his face. Time and again he died, spurting fake blood from his torso and heart. At other times he screamed in pain, reinterpreting his own past. Hollywood loves me, he said. I die well. Vietnam is a country full of young people with no direct memory of the Vietnam War. It is odd to think that 35 years since the war ended, it continues to stoke America's foreign policy fears. The entire country still stands for America's loss of innocence, its legacy of defeat and failure. A few years ago, I went back to Vietnam to make a documentary, and I did the touristy thing. I went to the Cu Chi Tunnel in Tây Ninh province, a complex underground labyrinth in which the Viet Cong hid during the war. There were a handful of American vets. They were back for the first time. They were very emotional. One wept and said, I spent a long time looking for this place and lost friends doing the same. But the young tour guide told me that it was the tourism that forced the Vietnamese to dig the old hideout up. Then in a whisper, she told me discreetly, it was a lot smaller back then. But now the new Cu Chi Tunnel is very wide. You know why? To cater to very, very fat Americans. She did not see the past. She crawled through the same tunnel with foreigners routinely, but she emerged with a different idea. Her head is filled with the Golden Gate Bridge and cable cars and two-tier freeways and Hollywood and Universal Studios. I have many friends over there now, she said, her eyes dreamy, reflecting the collective desire of Vietnamese youth. They invite me to come. I'm saving money for this amazing trip. Here's a young woman who looks at a tunnel that was the headquarters of the Viet Cong and the cause of massive bombing years ago, and what does she see? The Magic Kingdom. The Coochie Tunnel leads some to the past, surely, but for the young tour guide, it may very well lead to the future. On the eve of the second wave of the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, I wish to tell President Obama that the Vietnam syndrome cannot be kicked through acts of war. That only through a view that's rooted in people, rooted in human kindness, would a country open itself and stop being a haunting metaphor. That not until human basic needs are addressed and human dignity is upheld can we truly pacify our enemies and bring about human liberty. And that more soldiers and bombs and droids in the sky will never appease the haunting ghost of the past. Quite the opposite. We are in the process of creating more ghosts to haunt future generations. Years ago, the poet Robert Bly argued that Americans have yet to perform an ablution over past atrocities. We're engaged in a vast forgetting mechanism, and from the point of view of psychology, we're refusing to eat our grief, refusing to really eat our dark side, Bly said. And therefore, what Jung says is really terrifying. If you do not absorb the things you have done in your life, then you will have to repeat them. It may very well be that the tragedy of Vietnam cannot simply be overcome with some supposedly military victory, but with another tragedy of equal, if not greater proportion. It may very well be that a few years from now, when it's all over, the new American tourists can visit the caves of Tora Bora to weep at some hole in the ground, thinking about the futility of it all. Thank you.